Welcome everyone for our second session of the day and second session of our online careers conference. This session is a panel discussion and joining us we have Vic, Lee and Rob who will introduce themselves in a minute. I will give the lead to Vic and remove myself.
Thanks, Sarah Jane. Hi there, and hi to everyone who's watching this back on the recording as well. So I'm Vic Geary, and I am the careers lead at Future First. I'm also still a practicing careers advisor, working with young people in schools, colleges, universities, and those in their early in their careers as well. Um, I was around. I was one of the first careers leaders to go through the careers leader training. I've been a careers lead since 2017 when it was first a thing. So this is definitely a journey that I've been on. So I'm kind of looking forward to kind of hosting this panel and finding out a bit more of other people's perspectives. I'm just going to hand over to Rob to just introduce yourself, and then if you could hand it to Lee.
Hi everyone, I'm Rob Cremona. I've worked on careers at the Gatsby Foundation for the last 6 years or so. And yeah, looking forward to speaking to you all today. Lee?
Brill, yeah, hi everyone. I'm Lee Shaw. I head up the talent and engagement team at Shawbrook Bank. For those of you that don't know, Shawbrook are a specialist mid-size UK business and consumer bank, and we've been working in partnership with Future First now for the last 4 years.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, both. So the kind of topic for discussion today is about the updated Gatsby benchmarks and the fact that they've now been adopted into the new updated statutory guidance, which schools and colleges and ITPs are now required to meet. So this is about seeing it from all sides. So in terms of kind of alumni and teachers, that's sort of a perspective that I can offer. Unfortunately, our other panelist, Mark, was unable to be here today, but having worked in lots of different settings, I think that's something that I can cover off. In terms of from the Gatsby Foundation, I think if we start off with you, Rob, and just with a question, the updated Gatsby benchmarks and the statutory guidance that has come out of that really clearly state that schools should involve alumni in their careers programs. Can you tell us sort of what were the key moments or learnings during your research that led to the inclusion of that?
Absolutely, yeah. Obviously the Gatsby Foundation published the original Gatsby benchmarks back in 2014, and at the end of last year in November we got to the end of what was a 2-year process to review and update the benchmarks for the next 10 years and beyond. As you point out, Vic, the updated benchmarks are now directly referenced at the heart of the new statutory guidance for schools and colleges on careers that came out last month. And there's an expectation that schools and colleges should deliver those updated benchmarks from September. So this is a really good time to be looking again at those changes and kind of reviewing and planning what might need to change about your careers program. And we did that whole review because it had been 10 years since we published the original set of benchmarks. We knew that the world had changed in terms of technological changes in how the education system works, the qualifications landscape, and the labour market as well, with things like the advent of working from home, virtual encounters and experiences, which weren't really possible 10 years ago, but which are now very much part of the landscape. And also we want to take into account of all the accumulating evidence from the sector more widely about how to do careers well as kind of 6 years worth of implementation from schools and colleges who've been trying really hard to implement a strong career guidance program for all your young people, which I'm really, really grateful and want to acknowledge at this point as well. So taking into account all of that and trying to future-proof the benchmarks as the world-class standard for careers education and guidance for young people in England. And yeah, there is a new criteria under benchmark 3 that schools and colleges should use alumni to support their careers program. And it's one of the main themes that's kind of woven through all of the updates to the benchmarks, which is inclusion and impact for each and every young person. So as part of that, within Benchmark 3, we've strengthened how it's important to ensure that young people have contact with a wide range of role models, to help them break down stereotypes about the world of work and see all of the ways that people like them can be successful. Previously, the benchmarks talked about, or Benchmark 3 talked about, equality and diversity, and now we've strengthened that to explicitly include inclusion for the first time. And I think what inclusion really looks like in careers is young people not just knowing that a whole range of different career paths exist, but that they feel like they can belong in them as well. So that review process, we hired the University of Derby, ICEGS, the International Centre for Guidance Studies, to be our academic partner. And we worked with them on loads of different strands of evidence. They did literature reviews, they did interviews with experts. We also commissioned Youth Employment UK to hear from young people directly as well. We had an open consultation for educators as well as policymakers that had over 2,000 responses. And we also visited a huge number of schools, colleges, training providers, alternative provision settings, special schools, etc. And one thing which definitely did come up in our literature review regarding alumni was Future First's evaluation from 2016 of its alumni in the curriculum program. So alumni coming in as part of curriculum lessons, it was sort of a set of 4 interventions, and that was found to improve students' attainment within the subject, their motivation to study that subject and to continue studying it in the future, as well as their engagement with the topic at hand as well. And those students had access to an alumni who brought with them careers expertise, who helped to build their social capital, and as well as kind of giving them careers inspiration as well, and showing them what was possible through engagement in that subject, and encourage them to engage with it more. And all of that was achieved through having a relatable role model in the classroom, which was really, really powerful. And also, so many of the young people that we heard from on our visits were really enthusiastic about the power of alumni as well. So someone who's just kind of 1 or 2 steps ahead of them on their career journey, who sat where they're sitting, is a really powerful inspiration. And a colleague of mine went to an alternative provision setting called the Limes College in South London. And he brought back loads and loads of insights, but in particular, there was a quote from a Year 11 student, which actually made it into our final report, which you can look up. But I'm just going to read out what he said, because he said, this setting was really powerful on the use of role models, including alumni, as part of its program. And this student said, I really like seeing and hearing from people who are like me and who are on the same journey I want to be on. It makes me feel I can go on and do really good things as well. And it's good being able to ask them questions about it, and then talk to teachers about what I need to do next. I think it's also worth mentioning that alumni did feature quite strongly in our original Gatsby Benchmarks report from 2014 as well, Good Career Guidance, not in the wording of the benchmarks as such, but in terms of the good practice that we saw. So we noted that alumni were a really valuable source of contacts for employer encounters in particular. This is something that the independent schools that we visited and spoke to at the time were really good at doing. They often have a very strong alumni network. Quite often that originates for fundraising reasons, but then those alumni contacts were then being leveraged for the benefit of the careers program, for giving talks, contacts for experiences of the workplace, for helping to run mock interview sessions, and all sorts of things like that. And so the evidence kind of since then, over the last 10 years, has only accumulated. I think this, particularly the stuff that we heard from on our visits from young people, was really, really strong around alumni. And we felt that, we knew that this was an important and impactful element, or could be an important element of a careers program all the way back then. But with all the progress that schools and colleges have been making, and particularly perhaps with the stronger focus on data collection, destinations data, as schools and colleges, you're likely to now have some ongoing contact with alumni that you can now take advantage of and leverage in the ways that we saw in sort of some of the best independent schools back in the day. So I really hope that this is an achievable thing, and that you'll be able to leverage the benefits of alumni for the benefit of all your current students. I just want to quickly say as well that we're continuing to see this in action. So the Good Career Guidance report has a case study from Emmanuel College around how alumni are used. And since then, we've been gathering stories from what we call our Gatsby benchmark champions. And those are on our website, and we have a piece that just went up a couple of weeks ago from Simon Wareham, who's a vice principal at Southmore Academy in Sunderland. He's one of our champions, and he's written for the website really powerfully about an alumni event which they tried out for the first time for the benefit of their Year 7 pupils, and all of the work that went into developing that and what he got out of that experience. So I might just post a link to that article in the chat for people who want to read more, Vic, if that's okay.
Yes, please. Yeah, that would be great.
I think that's it from me for now.
Thank you. No, I think it's good to hear that there's such a strong evidence base for alumni being a really, really significant part of a kind of cornerstone of a careers program. I'd like to bring in Lee here, so because you're a very really active partner of Future First and obviously a huge advocate of alumni. Why do you feel it's important for schools to engage with their alumni community and with employers in general?
Sure. So I think there's kind of a couple of parts to this. On the engagement with the alumni community, I think there's a number of reasons, right? So I think at a really, really basic level, there is a high likelihood that some or the vast majority of school alumni community are now employed across a range of different types of careers in various sectors. And what we've seen at Shawbrook with this is that I think Rob used the words about relatable. I kind of think we've seen that our employees can really act as relatable role models to young people, either as them as former students of the school or college, or that today's student attends a relatable role model from within their community in which they now live or have an affinity to. So it doesn't always have to be the school they went to, but often it is. And I think what we've seen with that is students kind of saying, oh, I really now understand what it's really like to do that job, whether it's kind of a customer service job or whether it's a job in IT or whether it's a job in kind of maybe analytics and data or something tech related. It really brings it to life to young people about what the day-to-day activity looks like. And I think what we've seen is a kind of openness in terms of ability to ask questions and really drill down about what does your job actually mean, really do. And, the questions about how much you get paid and where do you work and kind of what hours are involved, all the stuff that young people really want to ask. I think we've seen kind of a really good two-way dialogue with that. And coupled with that, I think what we've found is that lots of our people who've volunteered to get involved here and act as relatable role models kind of feel like the sense of that they're giving back as well, I think, in that sense. So it's kind of a two-way street, I think, for an employer as well as kind of school or colleges. In terms of the wider engagement with employers, I think there's kind of two levels to that and the question. I think for me, many employers run kind of insight days or work experience days for students to come into the workplace and find out about what a career looks like in a specific sector and what type of opportunities are available. And what we've seen, we've ran these at Shawbrook. We ran a couple a year, and we have a lot of young people come in, about 40, into our offices, and it's a chance for them to engage directly with people similar age to them. So in our case, we have a number of apprentices that have joined at kind of 18, 19 years old. So young people in a similar boat who've been through that journey of kind of coming out of education into employment. And it also gives them an opportunity to really hear directly from maybe more experienced people as well. Some of the relatable role models we particularly just talked about just now, but also we've given them kind of opportunities to partake in mock interviews, CV writing, how to make an impact, what to do, what not to do. So it's really pragmatic kind of felt experiences from within the workplace. And I think that kind of is real world learning that can really help guide a young person in terms of getting a much better understanding of what they do want to do or what they don't want to do as well, right? So it's a two-way street there. And I think the second bit of that engaging with employers, being brutally honest with you, I think that there's a direct access to opportunities. So many companies, like including Shawbrook, offer apprenticeship opportunities to young people, and we feel that engaging directly with the employer can actually often provide a fast track route to assessment centres, increase the chance of that young person actually obtaining a role. That's certainly the view we've taken around that kind of engagement from the young person in the organisation is for me a kind of real proactive step to get people kind of in the funnel, so to speak, from an employment point of view, are really engaged in the role and the organisation. So that's kind of how I'd cover it, Vic, I think.
Now, it's really interesting that, and the kind of the wording that you used, I think Rob, you'll recognise, because really the way that you were talking about the most successful encounters, it's basically the definition in the Gatsby benchmarks of what a meaningful encounter is. It's that it's the two-way, it's the opportunity to actually have a conversation, that really makes all the difference, isn't it?
A lot of the time, yeah, I think, yeah, and so the thanks for kind of drawing attention to that. There's always been a definition of what a meaningful encounter is with either employers and employees in benchmark 5 or with further and higher education institutions in benchmark 7. But we expanded on what it means to be a meaningful encounter, to make sure we were really clear. We learned a lot about what the best practice looked like as well. And we added a definition of meaningful for benchmark 6 as well, for experiences of workplaces. Kind of emphasizing that you can deliver experiences of workplaces in lots of different ways. It really pays to have a variable kind of program and a progressive program, a multiplicity of different experiences that build up over time, rather than kind of waiting and thinking it has to be a one shot kind of 1 week or 2 week placement. But yeah, that part of that definition of meaningful is the opportunity for extensive two-way interaction with people who are really working or really studying in that environment. And if you bring alumni perhaps into school or college as part of your careers program, they could be, they could be delivering in lessons, as the Future First program did. They could be delivering careers talks in assemblies or what have you. But what you've really got there is an opportunity for that meaningful two-way interaction. And I think it is so much more powerful when they attended the same institution as the young people that they're speaking to. It really, really brings it home that this is achievable for young people like them.
Yeah, absolutely. It's that, especially when I was working in schools, and in a sixth form college in particular, that was initially, it was quite an academic one. It was kind of the one that was known as the one you go to do A levels. And there was a kind of, when I first arrived there, it was, we had a bit of we had a destination data issue. In that it was all university, but then we were finding that quite a lot of students, when they were contacted a year after, had dropped out or switched courses, and that was a real eye opener for me as a new careers lead going in. That I was like, there's a problem here. There's a guidance issue, and there's a careers education issue, in that the students clearly weren't being presented with all of the options. In particular, the digging that I did showed that they weren't being exposed to apprenticeships, or some students were, but it was a selective program of who was being exposed to apprenticeships, and the type of apprenticeships they were being exposed to were quite limited. There was some kind of pigeonholing going on, and so I created, instead of kind of UCAS application day, I created progression day, which was for year 12s. And we had a whole day where they were off timetable, and I had loads of different workshops. I had some university ones, but they were all hands-on. It wasn't come to our uni, here's a sales pitch. It's, I want you to tell me about some of your courses, like get specific. So, I had crime scene investigators in doing the policing course and stuff. But I had 50-50 of apprenticeship stuff and university stuff, and everybody went to everything. And in 3 years, we got close to 50-50 in terms of intended destinations. It had a big impact, but the biggest impact was when one of our kind of highest flying A-level students chose to go down the degree apprenticeship route, and she went and did the digital technology degree apprenticeship with BT, and she relocated from Manchester to Bristol. She was the most confident 18-year-old I've ever met. I'm not going to lie. She is definitely the exception rather than the rule in terms of relocating completely to flat. But the impact when she came back the following year, because she was known, because it was a small sixth form. So, the year 12s knew the year 13s. When she came back the following year, she'd already been promoted. She was already a supervisor. She was in a suit. She rocked up like she could have been 25. And the kids' jaws dropped. They were just like, what is this? And she told them how much she was now earning and that she was already being fast-tracked in her degree. And honestly, I had a queue out the door for guidance appointments, all asking about degree apprenticeships. I had calls from parents because that impact. The kids went home and spoke to their parents about what they'd seen. And it is that. I remember her. I used to sit near her in the canteen, and now look at her. She's in a suit. She's a professional. She's got a flat in Bristol. Like, she's 19, but she looks like she's running the show, and it was so hugely impactful. And I think it is really important. I think one thing to kind of come back to that I thought was really interesting from you, Lee, was I think Sarah Jane mentioned that one of of Future First member schools, the benchmark that they're most concerned about is Gatsby benchmark 6, which is experiences of workplaces. And I think obviously since the kind of strengthened benchmark and the kind of the way that some media outlets may have slightly sensationalized it and gone 2 weeks work experience from year 7, and it just like I think everyone's calmed down a little bit now that that's not what anyone's saying. But I think knowing this from working in schools and actually now working from the employer side, there are concerns on both sides. So schools tend to often be concerned that they approach a few businesses, and if they get a few knockbacks, they're like, well, no businesses want to engage with schools. I'm going to give up. Like, what's the point? How on earth are we going to facilitate this? And then speaking to employers, they're kind of going, well, how am I can't offer loads of work experience, but what am I meant to do? Like, I can't have work experience students in the business all of the time. And it's like, so from your perspective, you mentioned kind of that you see it as a recruitment pipeline, as a tool, engaging, leading to you getting good candidates. How would you kind of reassure schools that going and contacting your local employers is a good idea?
So if I just use some data from the last apprenticeship round, we had over 750 applications in a 2-week period, and 90% of those were done through AI.
Yeah.
So because the responses don't answer the question in the right way.
Yeah.
So for me, what I'm trying to say, it's very difficult to screen that volume of applications to detect quality and passion and engagement. Therefore, for employers, certainly for Shawbrook, I can't speak for everyone, that kind of whole engagement from the young person into the organisation, they've come along and had a conversation, they've actually taken the time, they've been brave enough, right, to step out into the world of work and get the train in our case into central London, which might be a bit uncomfortable, come into the building, find the building, engage in the conversation, be confident, have impact. I think for me, it provides a lot more comfort around the type and quality of candidate we're going to get through the door, but also I think it gives us, from our point of view, about ability to help influence young people's choices as well. No, it's not the be all and end all, but to provide the opportunity to come and have a look around what an office actually looks like, the type of work it is. So I think it's well worth the effort, and I think it's something. Obviously, we worked through you guys, Vic, at Future First to find the right schools. We now have 4 school partnerships, and we're looking to build more in Glasgow, where we've got opportunity going forward as well. So for us, we've actually had to work quite hard at finding the right schools. So reaching out for an organisation like us actually would be fantastic, right? Because it's what we're really looking to build on in terms of that pipeline of young people who are hungry and really want a career in our case, in banking, but also in the type of work they want to undertake.
Yeah. And working with Future First is a way that you can ensure that you're not just getting applications from the young people from the most privileged backgrounds.
Exactly. And I haven't given that lens on it, that social mobility lens as well, but we've been very, very conscious about kind of the perception of the banking industry, and that you've got to, we miss out on a ream of talent, great talent, if we don't proactively engage through the social mobility lens. And we've done that through yourself, Vic, and obviously other organisations, to kind of try and ensure we're providing that platform to young people who don't have that privileged background to be able to find their career into banking or legal or that kind of stuff.
Mm, yeah. And I think that that's one area that I think this might be a blog post for you and me to write, Rob. In terms of like how there's the experiences of workplaces and then how that kind of translates. I think that's really interesting, Lee, that you're working with Future First and you're offering that kind of support rather than just to young people to kind of get them there, acknowledging the fact that you're working deliberately with schools where the young people, they might have that raw passion, but they might not know how to articulate that, and they might not have done the kind of the trips, the visits. They might not have done scouts or cadets or been in a football team because they didn't have those opportunities open to them. It's offering that kind of scaffolded support to young people to enable them to actually get the opportunities. And I think that's a really key thing for that employers need to know and understand in terms of how they can contribute to the Gatsby benchmarks. That it's just offering a work experience placement, that's lovely. But if the young person turns up, I'm responsible for work experience at the agency where I work, and we really scaffold the week and kind of and adapt, and have a like debrief at the end of each day to go, well, how are they doing? And then right, this week's ones are quite shy. Like how can we simplify the task? How can we make sure that we're not overwhelming them, that they get a good experience, even though they're not quite as confident as the students that we had the week before. And it's I think the employer standards do from the careers and enterprise company do go a really good way to kind of explaining how to do that. But yeah, I think that is something that I think if employers saw it that way, that we might have even more engaging. What do you think, Rob?
I think so, definitely. I think it's important to um, acknowledge that, that benchmark 6 we call experiences of workplaces, and we deliberately chose that term rather than work experience because the term work experience has a lot of has a lot of recognition, but also potentially a lot of baggage in terms of what it means. And
like a sack of
fixed,
paperwork is the image that I think
yeah,
is
potentially,
conjured
yeah,
up.
exactly. It's a 1 week or a 2 week block placement in the summer term of year 10 or year 12, as it usually used to happen, is kind of the highest intensity type of experience that for both for an employer to set up and for a young person to take part in as well. So I think it's really important to have throughout the careers program, and from that key stage 3, like building up that experience, building up that exposure to different people from different walks of life, from different environments, those shorter visits to different environments, so that when it comes to the time for their perhaps multi-day placement, it doesn't feel so overwhelming as well. And as an employer, I wouldn't necessarily recommend that type of engagement as the first thing that you should do, because there are so many other ways to go into school and speak, to have a class on a site visit, for example, to get a feel for for what the workplace is like, to talk to people who are really there, but not with that kind of one-to-one scaffolding and support that's needed. I think it really helps to build that understanding first. And things like the employer standards from the CEC are brilliant to help schools and colleges and employers kind of talk the same language as well.
Yeah, definitely. We are actually over time. We could all talk about this all day. We do have one question, and I think Lee, you might be a good person to answer this. Which is, if you're in a school and want to reach out to local employers, do you have any advice on finding the right person in the organisation? I'd suggest LinkedIn and looking for someone like social value manager or ESG manager.
Yeah, or kind of head of talent or recruitment, that kind of thing is usually a good way in, or as kind of working with an organization like yourself, Vic, is a way into the partnerships that
Yeah.
you guys hold, right? Into existing organizations. That's it, it's a bit of a lottery, isn't it? But yes, I think you're right. Finding the right person on LinkedIn, sending them a message, usually personally is the best way to do it rather than just kind of randomly kind of
Yeah,
emailing them
yeah.
at work.
But definitely working through a third party. So Future First, if you're a member, you could also go through your local careers hub, which you can find on the Careers and Enterprise Company website. They're a good sort of source of local employers. Thank you so much, Lee and Rob. It's been lovely chatting with you, and I hope those listening have found it useful and insightful. Uh, Sarah Jane, I'll just hand back over to you
Yeah.
to wrap up properly.
Well, I wanted to, yeah, thank all of you as well for your time today. That was hugely insightful, I think. So really grateful for that. Before I let everyone go, I just wanted to quickly highlight that it is also Schools Alumni Week this week. If you head over to our social media, we are sharing videos all week that have been filmed recently, just earlier last month. From alumni talking about their experiences of going back into schools, which I think will actually add an extra perspective on this discussion. So yes, thank you so much, everyone, and I hope you get to enjoy a little bit of the sunshine before the end of the day. Thank you.
Thanks,
Bye.
everyone. Bye.
Thank you all very much.